What if the walls of your childhood home were hiding a secret?
For 50 years, the night Ananya returned to sell her ancestral house, she heard something impossible knocking from inside the walls. What she discovered behind a hidden door wasn't just a room. It was a story someone was never meant to tell. The house had been silent for decades, but that night it whispered. Ananya froze for a moment. She didn't even breathe. She stood alone in her ancestral home, place abandoned for nearly 50 years.
The air was thick with dust, swirling faintly in the dim light of her flashlight.
The wooden floor beneath her feet creaked with every small movement, as if protesting her presence.
Old portraits lined the walls, their faded eyes seeming to follow her wherever she went.
Watching, waiting. This house was once full of life, laughter, conversations, festivals. Now, it felt like a memory trapped in time. She had returned for one reason only. To sell it. Nothing more. No emotions.
No attachments.
Just paperwork and closure. At least, that's what she had told herself. But the moment she stepped inside earlier that evening, something felt different. Heavy.
Unsettling.
Like the house wasn't empty at all. Just quiet. Too quiet. As she slowly walked down the long hallway, her fingers brushing against the cracked and peeling walls, she felt a strange chill run through her body.
The paint flaked under her touch, leaving traces of white dust on her fingertips. This place really needs to go, she muttered under her breath, trying to shake off the uneasiness. Her voice echoed faintly, then disappeared. Silence returned, deep, thick, almost unnatural. Then tap. Ananya stopped. Her heart skipped a beat. She turned her head slightly,
listening. Nothing. Just the faint sound of wind slipping through broken windows somewhere in the house. She let out a small,
nervous breath. It's nothing, she whispered to herself.
Just the wind. She took another step forward. Tap, tap. This time, it was clearer, sharper, not random, not the wind. Ananya's body stiffened. Her grip tightened around the flashlight as she slowly turned around, the beam of light trembling slightly in her hand. Shadows stretched and twisted across the walls, making the hallway feel longer, darker, endless. Hello,
she called out softly, her voice barely above a whisper. In a response, only silence. But it wasn't comforting silence. It was the kind that presses against your ears.
The kind that makes your thoughts louder. She swallowed hard. Is someone there? She tried again, a little louder this time. Still nothing. Her heart was now pounding in her chest, each beat louder than the last. Maybe it really was just an old house settling. Wood expands.
Walls shift. Sounds happen. That's normal.
Right?
She turned back,
trying to convince herself to keep walking, to ignore it.
To finish what she came here to do. Then tap. Louder this time. Closer. Ananya spun around instantly. Her breath caught in her throat. Her eyes scanned the walls, the floor, the ceiling, searching. And then she realized something that made her blood run cold. The sound wasn't echoing. It was coming from a specific place, right behind her, slowly.
Very slowly. She stepped closer to the wall. Her hand trembled as she raised it, hesitating just inches away from the surface.
The flashlight beam flickered slightly, casting uneven light over the cracked paint. She leaned in, listening. Her heartbeat was so loud now,
it almost drowned everything else out. And then tap. Right there, from inside the wall. Ananya's eyes widened,
her breath hitching sharply. That's not possible,
she whispered, but deep down, she knew. This wasn't the wind. This wasn't the house settling. Something, or someone,
was behind that wall. The next morning, Ananya couldn't ignore it anymore. She barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard it again. Tap,
tap, tap, echoing in the darkness of her mind.
The sound wasn't loud, but it was persistent, deliberate,
as if something or someone had been trying to get her attention. By sunrise,
she had made up her mind. She needed answers. Armed with curiosity and a little fear, she walked back into the hallway, her footsteps slower than before, more cautious. The morning light slipped through the broken windows, casting pale beams across the dusty floor.
It made the house look less frightening, but not less mysterious. Her eyes fixed on the exact spot where she had heard the sound the night before, the wall. At first glance, it looked completely ordinary, just like the rest of the house.
Faded paint, fine cracks,
years of neglect.
But as she stepped closer, something caught her attention. A small crack, not random, not natural. It stretched vertically from about her waist level to slightly above her shoulder to straight.
Too precise.
Almost like it had been made intentionally. Her heartbeat quickened. She reached out slowly, her fingers brushing against the surface.
The wall felt colder here.
Smoother in some places, rougher in others.
She traced the line from bottom to top, her fingertips moving carefully along the narrow gap. That's strange, she whispered, her voice barely audible in the stillness. It didn't feel like damage. It felt like a boundary, like something was hidden just beneath the surface. Ananya took a step back, studying it more closely. Her mind raced with possibilities: old architecture, hidden storage, maybe even a sealed doorway. But why would anyone hide a door inside a wall? And why had no one ever mentioned it?
Not her parents, not her grandparents, not even in passing. She swallowed hard. A mix of excitement and unease twisted in her chest. Slowly, she placed her palm flat against the wall and pushed lightly. Nothing happened. The wall didn't move, didn't react, didn't even make a sound. Ananya let out a small breath, almost laughing at herself.
Maybe I'm overthinking this, she murmured, shaking her head, but something inside her refused to let it go. She stepped closer again. This time, she pressed harder. For a second, nothing, then click. The sound was soft, but unmistakable. Ananya's eyes widened. Before she could react, the wall shifted beneath her hand.
A faint grinding noise echoed through the hallway as a hidden panel slowly moved inward. She stumbled back in shock, nearly dropping her flashlight. The wall was opening. A narrow gap appeared, widening inch by inch, revealing complete darkness behind it.
The air that escaped from inside felt colder, heavier, as if it had been trapped there for decades. Ananya's breath caught in her throat. Her heart pounded so loudly, she could hear it in her ears. A secret door, she whispered, disbelief filling her voice. She stared at it.
Frozen. This wasn't just an old house anymore. This was something else, something hidden, something forgotten. For 50 years, no one had spoken about this.
No stories,
no warnings, no clues. It was as if this part of the house had been erased.
Intentionally. What could possibly be hidden here? She murmured, her voice trembling slightly, her mind filled with questions, each more unsettling than the last. Was it just an old storage room?
Or something far more disturbing? She hesitated. Every instinct told her to walk away. Close the door. Pretend she never found it. But curiosity
was stronger. With trembling hands, she tightened her grip on the flashlight. The beam flickered slightly as she raised it, pointing it toward the dark opening. She took a deep breath, then another, and slowly, cautiously, she stepped inside. The air inside was cold and still, not the kind of cold that comes from winter winds or shaded rooms, but a deeper, heavier cold, the kind that seeps into your bones, the kind that feels untouched, undisturbed. For years, Ananya paused just inside the doorway for a moment.
She didn't move, didn't breathe. It felt like she had stepped into a space where time itself had stopped. Slowly, her fingers tightened around the flashlight as she lifted it higher. The beam flickered once,
twice,
before settling into a steady
glow. And then the light revealed something unbelievable. A room not broken, not ruined, but perfectly preserved. Ananya's breath caught in her
throat. The furniture stood exactly where it must
have been placed decades ago. A wooden chair rested beside a small desk.
A narrow bed sat against the wall, neatly arranged, as if someone had just left it moments ago.
Everything was covered in thin white sheets, but beneath them, nothing looked damaged. No dust storms. No decay, just silence.
Frozen in time. How is this possible?
She whispered. Her voice sounded smaller here, swallowed by the stillness. She stepped forward carefully, her footsteps slow and cautious, afraid that even the slightest disturbance might shatter the strange perfection of the room. Her eyes scanned every corner. Old books stacked neatly on a shelf, a small oil lamp on the desk, a wooden trunk at the foot of the bed, and then her light stopped on the wall. There,
hanging slightly crooked, was a faded painting of a young woman. Ananya felt something shift inside her, drawn to it. She stepped closer. The closer she got, the stronger the feeling became. Familiarity, unsettling, undeniable familiarity. She raised the flashlight, illuminating the painting fully, and froze. Her eyes widened. Her breath hitched. She looks like me. The words escaped her lips before she could stop them. Same eyes, same face shape, same quiet intensity in her expression. It wasn't just similar. It was almost identical.
A chill ran sharply down
Ananya's spine, sending a wave of goosebumps across her skin. Her heart began to race again, faster this time. Louder. This
can't be a coincidence, she whispered, shaking her head slightly. Who was this woman?
And why did she look exactly like her?
Questions flooded her mind, each one more unsettling than the last. Trying to steady herself,
Ananya looked away from the painting, forcing her attention back to the room. That's when she noticed the desk.it stood quietly beneath the painting.
as if guarding something important. She approached it slowly. The wood was aged but strong, its surface surprisingly clean compared to the rest of the house. A thin layer of dust coated it, but beneath that, everything seemed untouched. Her eyes fell on something resting at the center, a diary.
Its cover was worn, the edges slightly frayed, but it was intact, carefully placed, almost as if it had been left there on purpose, waiting for someone. For her, Ananya hesitated. Her hand hovered just above it. A strange feeling washed over her, part curiosity,
Part fear, and something deeper she couldn't quite explain. Was she supposed to find this? Or had she just uncovered something that was meant to stay hidden? She swallowed hard, then slowly. She picked it up. The cover felt rough beneath her fingers, slightly cold, just like the air in the room. For a moment, she simply stared at it. Then, gathering what little courage she had left,
she opened it. The pages made a soft, fragile sound as they moved. The first page revealed a line written in slightly faded ink. If you are reading this, then you found my secret. Ananya's hands began to shake. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. The words felt personal. Direct.as if they had been written not just for anyone,
but for her. A chill crept up her spine again as she took a slow breath. Her eyes locked onto the page. What secret? She whispered. The room remained silent, but somehow it felt like it was listening, watching, waiting. With trembling fingers, Ananya turned the page and stepped deeper into a story that had been buried for half a century. The diary belonged to a woman named Mira. Ananya read the name again, slowly, as if saying it out loud might bring the woman to life. Mira. The ink had faded slightly, but the handwriting was elegant, careful, deliberate, filled with emotion. It wasn't just a name written on a page. It felt like a voice reaching across time. She turned the next page, and then another. Page after page revealed a story that no one had ever told, a hidden
life, a buried truth. Mira had lived in this very house over 50 years ago. Through her words, Ananya began to see her not just as a name, but as a person.
Intelligent, observant,
strong-willed, the kind of woman who questioned things,
who refused to simply accept the life chosen for her. And she was deeply in love. Ananya could feel it in the way Mira wrote soft lines filled with warmth, hope, and longing. When he speaks, the world feels quieter. One line read, with him,
I feel like I can breathe. Ananya's chest tightened as she read on. But that love
was forbidden. The tone of the diary shifted. The warmth faded. The words became heavier, sharper, painful. Mira's family had discovered her secret. They had found out about the man she loved, someone they did not approve of, someone they believed would bring shame to their name, and so they made a decision, a cruel one. They locked her away. In this very room. Ananya's hands trembled slightly as her eyes moved across the lines. They say it's for my honor, but it feels like a prison. A tear slipped down Ananya's cheek. She looked around the room again, really. Looked this time. The neatly arranged bed, the untouched furniture, the closed space. It wasn't just a hidden room. It was a
cage. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Each
entry grew more desperate, more fragile. Mira wrote about the silence,
how it pressed against her, how it slowly became unbearable. She wrote about counting days, about tracing the same steps across the floor, about staring at the walls until they felt like they were closing in. I screamed sometimes. One page read,
not because I think anyone will hear me,
but because I need to remember that I still can. Ananya covered her mouth, trying to hold back her emotions. The pain in those words felt real. Too real. Mira wrote about hope, how she held onto it in the beginning.
She believed someone would come,
that someone would realize what had been done to her. But as time passed, that hope began to fade. I don't know what day it is anymore. Another entry read,
the light never changes. The silence never breaks. Her writing grew weaker, more uneven, almost as if even holding the pen had become difficult, and yet
she kept writing because it was the only way she could exist beyond these walls. Then came the final entry. Anania's breath slowed as she reached it. The ink was lighter here, the handwriting less steady. If I cannot leave this room, my story will leave with me. But maybe, one day, someone will find this. Someone who understands. The words lingered in the air, heavy, haunting, and then
nothing. No more pages. No more words. The diary ended there. Ananya stared at the empty page for a long moment, her vision blurred with tears.
Her fingers tightened around the edges of the diary as a deep, aching sadness filled her chest. That's it,
she whispered softly. That's how it ends. Her voice cracked. Slowly, she lowered the diary. Her eyes moved around the room again, but this time, everything felt different. The bed no longer looked neat. It looked lonely. The chair no longer looked ordinary. It looked unused, forgotten. Her chest tightened painfully. Did she die here? She whispered. The question hung in the cold air, unanswered. There was no sign of escape. No broken wall. No hidden exit. No evidence that anyone had ever come to save her. Just silence and a story that had been buried for decades, waiting for someone to finally hear it. Ananya walked out of the hidden room slowly, her mind racing. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of everything she had just discovered was pressing down on her shoulders. The cold air of the secret room faded behind her, replaced by the familiar stillness of the hallway, but nothing felt the same anymore. This wasn't just a discovery. It wasn't just an old room hidden behind a wall. It was a truth her family had buried, a truth no one had ever spoken about, a truth that changed everything. Ananya paused just outside the doorway, her fingers still lightly gripping the edge of the hidden panel. She turned her head slowly and looked back inside. The room stood there in silence, unchanged, untouched. But now, it no longer felt empty. It felt alive, filled with a presence, with emotions that had been trapped for decades. Her eyes drifted to the desk. The diary she still held in her hands, and then to the painting. That face. Is so familiar. Is so haunting. Mira, she whispered softly. The name no longer felt distant. It felt personal. Connected. As if
somehow their lives had crossed paths across time. Ananya swallowed hard,
her chest tightening again, but this time it wasn't just sadness. It was something deeper. Responsibility. She gently pushed the hidden door further open until it stood fully revealed.
No longer a secret.
No longer something hidden behind walls and silence for 50 years. It had stayed shut, locked away, forgotten. But now it had revealed a voice that refused to be forgotten, a story that refused to disappear. Ananya stepped back into the hallway, her eyes still fixed on the open doorway. The house around her felt different now, not just an old structure filled with dust and decay, but a place filled with untold stories, stories that mattered, stories that deserved to be heard. That night, she sat alone in the dimly lit living room, the diary resting on her lap. The same house she had planned to leave behind now felt like something she couldn't walk away from. She thought about everything she had read, the pain, the silence, the loneliness, and the final hope Mira had held onto, that someone, someday, would find her story. Ananya took a slow, steady breath. I found it, she whispered into the quiet room, and I understand. The decision came to her not as a question, but as a certainty. She wouldn't sell the house. She couldn't. Not anymore. Instead, she would restore it. Every wall, every room, every hidden corner. She would bring it back to life, not just as a building,
but as a place of memory, a place of truth. And she would tell Mira's story. To the world. She would make sure that what happened here would never be forgotten again. That Mira's voice, once silenced and hidden, would finally be heard. Because some doors aren't just made of wood and stone. They're made of secrets, of pain, of stories waiting in the dark,
hoping someone will finally find them. And when they open,
they don't just reveal rooms, they reveal truth. Late that night, as the wind blew softly through the old corridors, the house seemed quieter than before. The uneasy tension that once filled its walls had faded, replaced by something gentler, something calmer. Ananya stood in the hallway one last time before heading to bed,
her gaze drifting toward the open doorway at the far end. For a moment, she simply stood there, listening, waiting. But there was no tapping sound. No whispers in the walls. No restless echoes. Just silence, a peaceful silence. Ananya closed her eyes briefly, a soft breath escaping her lips, and for the first time since she arrived, she felt something she hadn't expected to feel in this place. Peace, and maybe, just maybe, the house was no longer whispering because its story
had finally been told. And sometimes,
the past doesn't disappear, it waits to be found. Ananya didn't just uncover a hidden room.
she gave a forgotten voice a second life. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because some stories deserve to be heard by the world.